The world around her was dark, silent, and cold. Lily could feel the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor, a soft, relentless pulse that reminded her she was still alive. But she didn't want to be. Not anymore. Her breath was shallow, struggling to fill her lungs, but the pain, it was overwhelming. She could barely move. Her body felt as if it had been torn apart, piece by piece, and now all that was left was a weight, heavy, suffocating. If there was a God up there, if there was a reason for her to still be breathing, she didn't understand it. But she didn't care. Her life had been nothing but a series of betrayals and lies. What was the point of holding on? Jesus, let me die. If that's what you want, just take me, she whispered, barely able to speak. The words felt strange on her lips, like a prayer, but empty. She had no hope left. Not for herself. Not for anyone. In the silence of the sterile hospital room, the only sound was the steady beep of the monitor, and then something else. A voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear at first, just a faint whisper against her mind. But it was there, and it startled her. Not yet, Lily. There's still work to be done. Her heart skipped a beat, but it wasn't from fear. It was from the sudden, jarring realization that she wasn't alone. Something was watching her. Listening. The voice came again, this time louder. You're not done yet. You have no idea why you're still here, but you will. Lily's eyes fluttered open, and the hospital room came into focus. The harsh, fluorescent lights above her blurred at first, but then sharp details began to form. Her fingers tingled as if waking up from a long sleep, and yet the deep, bone-crushing pain in her chest reminded her that she was still broken. The voice, it wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the feeling was unmistakable. Her body was torn, but her mind was clear. For a brief moment, the agony she had been drowning in felt distant, replaced by something else. Something that she couldn't quite understand yet. She had to focus. Why am I still here? She thought, her mind racing. What am I supposed to do? The beep of the heart monitor was the only sound she could hear, louder now, more insistent. Her eyes closed again, and she remembered. The years before the accident felt like another lifetime, another version of herself. A version of Lily who smiled brightly in family photos, who made dinner for Tom and the kids every night, who believed in fairy tales. She remembered how they had met, Tom and her. It seemed like a dream now, a memory wrapped in sunshine. They were 22 when they first met, both of them fresh out of college. Lily, bright-eyed and idealistic, had just landed her first real job at a marketing agency. Tom had that easy confidence, the kind that made everyone in the room want to listen. He was funny, charming, everything she needed at that moment in her life. They married just 2 years later, a whirlwind romance that seemed perfect in every way. Lily thought she had it all. An exciting career, a man who adored her, and dreams of a big family. Their house was filled with the sound of laughter, the smell of Sunday dinners, and the buzz of a life that felt secure. The first cracks in the facade appeared much later. It was subtle at first, Tom's long hours at work, his increasing distance from her, the feeling that he was always somewhere else, even when he was right beside her. But Lily had chosen to ignore it. She was in love. She was happy, or so she convinced herself. She could still remember the first time she suspected something was wrong. It was a cold Tuesday night, a few months before the accident. Tom was late again, his phone buzzing on the kitchen counter while Lily prepared dinner. She glanced at the screen, saw a name she didn't recognize. Catherine. A shiver ran down her spine. Catherine. The name stuck in her head, gnawing at her. Lily had never heard Tom mention anyone by that name, not even in passing. But there it was, his phone screen glowing, the message from Catherine left unread. Who is she? Lily whispered under her breath. The words echoed in her mind, followed by a knot in her stomach. That night, after dinner, she couldn't help herself. She confronted him. Tom had that look in his eyes, guarded, distant. She asked him about the message. He denied it, of course. Just a colleague, he said. Someone from work. But the unease lingered. The small things, the quiet, unspoken things, began to pile up. Tom's excuses grew more frequent. Late meetings, out-of-town trips, unexplained absences. His behavior became more erratic, and yet Lily told herself it was just the stress. It had to be. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had seen it before. She had heard the whispers in the silence. Something was wrong. Now, in the sterile quiet of the hospital room, Lily could feel the weight of those unspoken truths pressed down on her chest. The voice in her mind, the one that had told her she wasn't done yet, was real. It was a sign. A message. She just didn't know what it meant yet. Her hand reached out, trembling, for the hospital bed rail. She needed to move. To stand. To walk away from the broken version of herself she had become. But it wasn't just her body that needed to heal. It was her soul. The betrayal she had endured wasn't just from Tom. It was the years of neglect, the years of living in a lie. But how could she possibly move forward? What was left for her in a world that had been shattered? Lily closed her eyes again, her mind racing. She couldn't think clearly through the haze of pain and confusion. But one thing was certain, she couldn't go back. She couldn't go back to the woman she was before the crash, before the betrayal, before the lies. Something had changed inside her. And she didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Lily woke up the next morning to the steady, rhythmic pulse of the heart monitor. It was still dark outside, the first rays of dawn creeping in through the edges of the hospital blinds. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of her own sweat. Her body ached in places she didn't even know existed, but that was nothing compared to the ache in her chest. The emotional pain was something far worse than any physical injury. As she slowly opened her eyes, she tried to piece together what had happened. The accident, the car crash, the message from Catherine, the voice in her head telling her she wasn't done yet. But it wasn't the voice that kept echoing in her mind. It was the image of her life before everything fell apart. The perfect life, the family, the husband she had loved with all her heart, the children who were everything to her. How did it all turn into this? Tom. That name, once the source of all her happiness, now felt like a weight she couldn't bear to carry. She remembered the man she had married. The man she had believed in, the man who had promised to be her partner in everything. He was supposed to be her equal, her rock, her safe place. They had met at a party thrown by mutual friends when they were both just beginning to establish themselves. Lily, newly graduated, full of dreams and ambition. Tom, charming and effortlessly confident, already working his way up in a prestigious law firm. It had been an instant connection. They spoke for hours that night about their hopes, their futures, their plans. He was everything she had ever wanted in a man. His smile made her feel like the most important woman in the world. He was attentive, kind, and so incredibly easy to be around. She had never once doubted that they were meant to be. Their wedding was a celebration, a storybook event. All of their friends and family gathered around them, and they were the perfect couple, the envy of everyone. Tom, the successful lawyer, and Lily, the rising star in her marketing career. They were supposed to have it all. And then came the kids. Emily, their oldest, a sweet, spirited girl with a laugh that could fill a room. Ethan, their youngest, more quiet and serious, but with a sharp intelligence that Lily adored. The house had been full of laughter and the busy sounds of family life, dinner being prepared, the kids' laughter echoing in the halls, the comfort of having everything in its right place. But there were cracks. Subtle at first, small things she could explain away. Tom would stay late at work more often. His phone would ring at strange hours, but when she asked about it, he would brush her off. "Just work stuff," he would say with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. She told herself she was overthinking. That's what people did in relationships, didn't they? They worried. But with Tom, the distance only seemed to grow, and no matter how hard she tried to hold it together, it felt like they were slipping further apart. Lily thought back to their last family vacation, just a few months before the accident. They had gone to the mountains for a long weekend getaway, the kids thrilled to be away from school, and Lily clung to the hope that this would bring them closer together again. But Tom had been distant the entire trip, barely speaking, spending most of his time checking emails or making phone calls outside. "Everything's fine," he had told her that weekend, when she finally confronted him about his behavior. But she knew in her gut that something was wrong. It was then that Lily had first seen the signs of a crack that ran deeper than she could have imagined. Something was happening, something she couldn't explain. Her world, which had felt so solid, so secure, was beginning to feel like it was crumbling beneath her feet. The day she found the message from Catherine was like any other, or so it seemed. It was a cold Tuesday evening, and Tom had promised to be home early for dinner. But as usual, he was late. Lily, who had spent the evening cooking their favorite meal, set the table for 4, expecting the usual family dinner, the laughter, the warmth. But as the minutes passed, Lily began to grow restless. She went into the living room to call Tom. His phone rang and rang, unanswered. She could feel her frustration mounting. And then the phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Tom had left his phone on the counter, and it lit up with a message from an unknown number. Lily couldn't help it. Curiosity gnawed at her, and before she could think, she picked up the phone. The message was from Catherine, just 2 simple words, "Are we still on?" Lily's heart sank. She didn't know who Catherine was. She had never heard that name before in Tom's life. The words burned into her mind, each syllable making her stomach twist tighter. What was this? Was it a joke? A colleague at work? Was Tom having an affair? A million questions spiraled in her mind, but one thing was certain, her world was on the brink of shattering. When Tom finally arrived home, the smell of the dinner she had lovingly prepared hung in the air, untouched. Lily couldn't even look at him. She handed him his phone wordlessly, and when he saw the message, his face went white. "It's nothing," he said, his voice thick with guilt. "I can explain." But it was already too late. Lily had seen enough. She didn't need the explanation anymore. The truth was clear as day. Tom had been lying to her. And now, with the message staring back at her, Lily felt the ground beneath her feet give way. The man she had trusted, the man she had given her heart to, was no longer the man she thought he was. The love she had once felt was slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't stop it. Lily stared out the hospital window, trying to push the painful memories aside. The sun had risen, casting a soft glow over the city, but the world outside seemed distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Her fingers twitched in the sterile sheets. The pain in her body was real. But the pain in her heart, that was something else entirely. Her mind returned to the last night she had spent at home before the crash. She had stayed up late, waiting for Tom to come back. She had wanted to confront him, to demand answers, to find out why everything had fallen apart. But she had been too afraid of what the truth might be. And now here she was broken, betrayed, alone. The family she had fought so hard to keep together had been shattered in an instant. Tom had broken her trust, and now he was gone. As her mind wandered back to those final days, one thing became clear to her. She couldn't go on pretending. She had to face the truth no matter how painful it was. And that meant facing Tom. The morning after the argument with Tom felt different. The air in the house was thick with silence, the kind of silence that filled every room, suffocating any hope that things would go back to normal. Lily hadn't expected things to be perfect, but this was beyond what she could have imagined. She had never seen him like this before. His distant look, the way he avoided her gaze, the way he wouldn't even hold her hand anymore, it all spoke louder than words. That night, she had been ready to let it all out. It had been building for months, the frustration, the anger, the confusion. She had tried to keep the peace, tried to pretend that nothing was wrong, but deep down she knew. She felt it every time Tom came home later than usual, every time his phone buzzed with messages from people she didn't recognize, every time he refused to talk about his day. Now, with the confession, the truth was out. But was it really the truth? Or was it just another lie wrapped in a half-hearted excuse? "I swear, it's not what you think," Tom had pleaded after Lily confronted him about Catherine's message. "Then what is it, Tom?" Lily's voice shook as she spoke. She had barely been able to hold back the tears. "Why does she know you so well? Why does she have your attention, your time, when I don't?" Tom had stumbled for words. His eyes darted around, avoiding hers, as though he were looking for a way out of this mess he had created. "Catherine. She's just a colleague, okay? Someone I've been working with. It's nothing like you think. It's not an affair." Lily's heart sank. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But everything inside her screamed that he was lying. This wasn't the Tom she had married. The Tom she knew wouldn't have betrayed her like this. And yet, the truth was undeniable. There was another woman. And no matter how much he tried to explain it away, it didn't change the fact that he had chosen her over Lily. "I don't believe you," Lily whispered, the weight of those words crashing down on her. "I don't believe you anymore, Tom." Tom's face fell. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He knew. He knew it was too late. Lily had already seen the cracks, and now they were too wide to ignore. She turned away, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. "I don't know who you are anymore." Lily walked out of the room, not waiting for his reply. She couldn't hear him anymore. She couldn't bear it. She had given him everything, and this was how he repaid her? With lies? With betrayal? The next few days felt like a blur. Tom had tried to apologize, of course. He promised it would never happen again, that he would fix it. He said all the right things, things that should have made her feel better. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling of being fooled. The promises rang hollow in her ears, and every time she saw him, every time he touched her, she felt nothing. The bond they once shared had been severed. But what could she do? She had 2 kids to think about. She had a life to hold together. And so, she put on the mask of normalcy. She tried to act like everything was fine for the sake of the children. But inside, she was falling apart. She couldn't keep pretending anymore. The cracks were too deep. A few months later, Lily was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to apply makeup with shaky hands. She couldn't focus. She had been running on fumes, emotionally drained, for weeks. Every time she looked at Tom, all she saw was the man who had betrayed her. And yet, every time she tried to confront him, the words stuck in her throat. He was out of the house again. Another late meeting. She had heard the same excuse so many times before. But this time, it was different. This time, she was done. Her heart thudded in her chest as she turned away from the mirror. She couldn't stay here any longer. She couldn't live in this house where every corner reminded her of Tom's lies. She needed to escape. Just for a little while. Just to clear her mind. Without thinking, she grabbed her car keys, slipping them into her bag, and walked out the door. She didn't even tell Tom goodbye. She couldn't. Words wouldn't fix this. Nothing would. She drove aimlessly for a while, her hands gripping the wheel tightly, her mind swirling with thoughts she couldn't control. The streets blurred by, the night sky pressing down on her, and the road stretched out before her like an endless abyss. She didn't care where she was going. She just needed to go somewhere, anywhere, to get away from the suffocating weight of her reality. As she drove, her thoughts continued to race, replaying the conversations she'd had with Tom, the things she had seen, the message from Catherine, the lies, The way Tom had stopped being the man she had loved. Everything felt like it was crashing down on her all at once. The past, the present, everything had become tangled together in a messy knot that she couldn't untangle. And then, in a split second, everything changed. Her mind went blank. One moment, she was behind the wheel, her eyes unfocused, her heart heavy. The next, her car veered off the road. She didn't remember much after that, just the sudden impact, the sharp crunch of metal, and then the darkness. When Lily woke up in the hospital, the first thing she noticed was the pain. Her body felt like it had been crushed, the ache seeping into every muscle. She couldn't move without wincing. But it wasn't just the physical pain that overwhelmed her. It was the emotional weight that pressed down on her chest, suffocating her. What had happened? Why was she here? The memory of the crash came back in fragments, jagged pieces that didn't fit together. And then there was the voice that had spoken to her when she thought she was dying. It wasn't a dream. It was real. She knew that now. It wasn't the pain that had brought her back. It was something else. Something beyond her understanding. But why? Why had she survived? What was the purpose of all this? The questions swirled in her mind, but she couldn't find the answers. The only thing she knew for sure was that she couldn't go back to the life she had before. Not with Tom. Not with the lies. Not with the betrayal. Something had changed in her. She wasn't sure what yet. But she would find out. The soft buzz of the Ford drip was the only sound breaking the heavy silence of the hospital room. For Lily, it was an odd comfort, something steady in a world that had been turned upside down. Her body ached, bruises and broken bones making themselves known with every movement, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the gnawing emptiness in her chest. She had survived the crash. She had made it through, despite everything. But why? What was the reason behind it? Was it divine intervention, or just sheer luck? The voice, the one that had spoken to her when she was sure she was about to die, still echoed in her mind. Not yet, Lily. You're not done yet. It had to mean something. She couldn't ignore it. Her eyes roamed around the sterile white room, taking in the bright fluorescent lights above her, the cold, impersonal walls. Everything felt so disconnected from the life she had known. The life before Tom, before Catherine, before the crash. Lily turned her gaze to the small window by her bed. Outside, the sky was clear, the sun shining brightly in the spring morning. It looked like a perfect day, and yet Lily felt completely out of place in it. She had to face the truth: her marriage was over. The lies, the betrayal, the gradual unraveling of everything she had once believed in, it was all out in the open now. There was no pretending anymore. But what was she supposed to do with this truth? How could she move forward when everything that once mattered felt like a shattered mirror? She had spent years building her life around Tom. He was her partner, her best friend, the father of her children. But now? Now he was a stranger. A man who had lied to her, who had chosen someone else over his family, over the life they had built together. What now? The question burned in her mind. How was she supposed to heal from this kind of betrayal? Her phone buzzed on the small table beside her bed, snapping her out of her thoughts. She reached for it slowly, feeling the weight of her decisions pressing down on her as she unlocked the screen. It was a message from Tom. Lily, please, we need to talk. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I know I messed up. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Please, call me when you're able. Her hand shook slightly as she read the message, a flood of emotions rushing over her. Part of her wanted to throw the phone across the room, to tell him she was done. But another part of her, one that was still clinging to the hope that things could be fixed, wanted to reach out, to listen, to hear him out. But why? Why would she go back to someone who had betrayed her so completely? The thought of reconciliation felt so foreign, so impossible. It was too much to even consider. She sighed deeply, staring at the message as if it were a foreign language. There was a time when this message would have made her heart leap, when Tom's apology would have been the thing she longed for. But now? Now it just felt like a cruel reminder of everything she had lost. Her mind wandered back to the events leading up to the crash. Tom's lies, the secrets, the emptiness she had been pretending didn't exist. She had driven away that night, not knowing where she was going, but knowing she couldn't stay. Maybe she had been trying to escape him, to escape the hurt. But in the end, the crash had been the escape she hadn't expected. The escape that had brought her here, to this hospital room, alive but broken. Was it a second chance? That thought lingered in her mind. A second chance at what? At fixing her marriage? At finding peace? At forgiving Tom? Lily wasn't sure what a second chance would look like. She wasn't even sure if she wanted one. But what she did know was that she couldn't stay stuck in the past. She couldn't keep rehashing everything that had led her here. She needed to move forward. But how? It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, and Lily had been sitting in the living room, trying to catch up on work emails while the kids played in the yard. Ethan was chasing Emily around, both of them laughing uncontrollably, their carefree voices filling the air. For a brief moment, Lily felt a flicker of peace. Her life had once felt like this, like a calm, predictable rhythm. And then came the knock on the door. Tom had come home early that day, his face tight, his eyes avoiding hers. He had been acting strangely for weeks, and Lily had been growing more and more concerned. She had hoped the weekend would bring some clarity, some sense of normalcy, but it was clear that something was wrong. She stood up, wiping her hands on her jeans, her heart beating faster as he entered the room. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. "Tom," she asked cautiously, her voice soft. "What's going on?" He hesitated for a moment, running a hand through his hair, before answering. "I need to tell you something, Lily," he said, his voice low, almost apologetic. Lily's stomach tightened. She had been expecting this moment, but she hadn't been ready for it. "Not yet." "What is it?" she asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. I'm not sure how to say this, but I've been seeing someone else." The words hit her like a slap in the face. Her heart stopped. For a split second, everything around her seemed to freeze, and then her world came crashing down. "What?" Her voice trembled, barely audible. Tom lowered his eyes, ashamed. "Her name is Catherine." I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. But I can't deny it anymore. I'm in love with her." Lily's mind reeled. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her knees felt weak, and she had to sit down. Her eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "Not yet. Not in front of him." You're in love with her?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Tom nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you, Lily. I never thought it would come to this, but I can't turn back." The room felt like it was closing in on her, and she struggled to breathe. She had built her entire life around him, around them. And now? Now he was telling her that everything they had shared had been a lie. The world around her seemed to blur, and the sound of her children laughing outside became muffled, distant. The future she had imagined, full of love, of family, disappeared in an instant. "I don't even know who you are anymore," Lily said quietly, her voice shaking. Tom didn't respond. He just stood there, silently, like a stranger in the room. Lily sat up in the hospital bed, the phone still in her hand. The message from Tom was still there, taunting her, pulling her back to a past she had tried so hard to escape. What if she was wrong? What if there was a chance for forgiveness? What if there was a way to rebuild what had been broken? Could she ever trust him again? Her mind flashed back to the voice that had spoken to her when she thought she was dead. "Not yet, Lily. You have no idea why you're still here, but you will." Perhaps there was more to this than just pain and betrayal. Maybe, just maybe, her survival had a purpose. She wasn't sure what that purpose was yet, but it was time to find out. Lily slowly typed a response to Tom's message. I'm not sure what happens next, but I'm not ready to give up yet. And just like that, a new chapter of her life began. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Lily's phone vibrated again just a few minutes after she sent her message. She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering above the keyboard, unsure of what to expect. Would Tom come rushing to the hospital? Would he try to explain everything again, apologize once more like he always had before? She didn't know if she was ready for that. She wasn't sure she ever would be. But this time, she wasn't doing it for him. She wasn't trying to fix them anymore. She was doing this for herself. Her life had been in free fall for months, no, years, and the crash had been the final catalyst. Now, she was left in the aftermath, standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure of whether to jump or turn around. The phone buzzed again. This time, she opened it. Tom. I'll be there soon. Just, please, let me explain. The words stung like salt on an open wound. But beneath the anger and hurt, Lily felt something she hadn't expected, a strange sense of clarity. Maybe this wasn't about Tom at all. It wasn't even about their marriage or the lies he had told. Maybe it was about her. About learning to stand on her own, to reclaim the pieces of herself she had lost in the shadow of their life together. Lily set the phone down on the table beside her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the pressure to act, to do something to fix things. She could simply be. She could choose her next move. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of what came next. It wasn't just the big betrayals that had broken Lily. It was the small ones, the things she had ignored or brushed off over the years. Tom's late nights at the office had been the first sign, but it wasn't just that. It was the way he would look at his phone when she walked into the room, the way he suddenly started taking more business trips without telling her much about them. The way his laughter, the one that had once filled their home, became rarer, colder. At first, she had tried to ignore it. Maybe it was work stress. Maybe he was just tired. But deep down, she knew. She knew something was off, and it hurt more than she could explain. She had confronted him once, gently, tentatively, asking if everything was okay. Of course, he had replied, looking at her with that same tired smile. Everything is fine, Lily. But it wasn't fine. She felt it in the pit of her stomach every time he came home later and later, every time the walls between them grew higher. And then came the day she saw the first hint of Catherine's name in his phone, buried in a series of late-night texts. Catherine had been persistent. She would text Tom late at night, when Lily had already gone to bed, and it was always about work. At least, that's what Tom had said. But Lily wasn't stupid. She knew a lie when she heard one. And the fact that he had never mentioned Catherine to her, never spoken about this colleague he was supposedly working with, only added to her suspicions. It was in that moment, that first glance at the phone screen, that Lily realized that everything she had believed in was a lie. The trust she had placed in Tom was fragile, and with one simple glance, it shattered. Lily let the memory fade as she stared at the hospital ceiling. She was done looking back. The past had its hold on her, but no longer. She could no longer let the pain dictate her actions. She had to take control of her own story. But how? Her thoughts returned to the voice. Not yet, Lily. You're not done yet. Was that a message about Tom? About the marriage? Or something else entirely? There was a question Lily had to ask herself, a question she couldn't ignore any longer. What do I want now? The answer wasn't clear. The future seemed foggy, filled with more uncertainties than certainties. But in that fog, there was one thing she knew. She didn't want to live in the past anymore. Her phone buzzed again, interrupting her thoughts. This time, it was a message from Catherine. Catherine. Lily, I know you're angry, but I need you to know I never meant for this to happen. I didn't steal Tom from you. I didn't ask for any of this. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected Catherine to reach out, but there it was, another reminder of the woman who had become so entwined in her life without even knowing it. "You didn't steal him? Then what exactly did you do?" Lily wanted to reply, but she didn't. Instead, she stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it. It didn't matter. The apology was empty, and the pain was no less real because of it. The only thing that mattered now was what Lily chose to do next. The day of the crash, Lily had known something big was coming. She had felt it in the air, that familiar dread that had settled in her chest in the months before the accident. She had tried to talk to Tom, tried to force him to admit the truth, to face the reality of what had been happening behind her back. But he had been evasive, too careful with his words. He had apologized over and over again, but his actions didn't match his words. "I don't know what you want from me, Lily," Tom had said one night, the frustration in his voice almost tangible. "I've apologized, okay? What more do you want me to say?" "What more?" Lily had repeated, her voice shaking with anger. "How about the truth? How about the truth, Tom? I'm tired of wondering what's going on. I'm tired of pretending everything is fine." Tom had looked away, his face tight with frustration. He knew she was right. He knew that the cracks were starting to show. But he had been unwilling or maybe unable to face what he had done. In that moment, something in Lily had snapped. She couldn't be the woman who continued to ignore the truth, who lived in denial, who waited for a man to change his mind about her. She had tried for so long to make everything work. But now it was clear. It wasn't just about Tom anymore. It was about her. "I'm done, Tom," she had whispered, the words leaving her mouth before she could even process them. "I can't do this anymore. I'm done." And with those words, she had walked out, not knowing that her world would come crashing down just hours later. Lily wasn't done yet. The voice had been right. She was still here. She had survived. But now she needed to figure out what she was meant to do with this second chance at life. She had been given a chance to start over, to rewrite her story. And this time, she wouldn't be defined by Tom's lies, by her broken marriage, or by the past. She would define herself. She would choose her path. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, Lily didn't hesitate. She opened the message. "Tom, I'm sorry for everything, but I love you, Lily. I always have. Please, let me fix this." Lily stared at the words for a long moment, her heart aching. But this time, the decision was hers. She wasn't going to let the past dictate her future. She typed a response, her fingers steady. "I'm not sure what the future holds, Tom, but I'm going to find out on my own. I need to heal. For me, not for you." And with that, Lily hit send. The road ahead would be difficult, but it was hers to walk. The days following the message to Tom felt like a blur. Hospital visits came and went, and Lily's body began to heal, but the wounds in her heart felt like they would never fully close. Each moment she spent in the sterile hospital room, she felt more and more detached from the world outside. The noise of the city, the hustle of daily life, it all seemed so distant now. It was as though Lily had stepped into another world, one where she wasn't sure of who she was or what she wanted anymore. She spent hours staring out the hospital window, watching the leaves in the courtyard flutter in the breeze, but her thoughts kept spiraling back to the same question: why wasn't I enough? Why had Tom chosen Catherine? And why hadn't she seen the truth sooner? But what could she do now? She couldn't undo the past. The only thing left to her was how to move forward. Lily's recovery was slow, both physically and emotionally. She had no family nearby, no one to lean on except for her closest friend, Olivia, who had been by her side since the accident. Olivia was the type of friend who would drop everything to help, even when her own life was chaotic. But Olivia's kind eyes and comforting words didn't take away the pain. On one particularly difficult morning, Lily's physical therapist arrived for a session. She had been doing her best to follow the instructions, though every movement felt like a struggle. The aches from her bruises were becoming more pronounced, and the bones in her leg, which had been fractured, throbbed with each motion. Her therapist, a man named Derek, noticed the fatigue in her eyes. "How are you feeling today?" he asked as he adjusted her forestand. His voice was soft, but professional. Lily gave him a tired smile. "Same as always. Getting through the motions." "That's the spirit," Derek said, encouragingly, though it was clear he could see right through her facade. "But if you don't mind me saying, it seems like you're carrying more than just physical pain. You've been here for a while now, and I know you're stronger than this. But you can't heal fully if you don't face what's going on inside." Lily hesitated. She wasn't sure she was ready for this conversation. Not now. Not with someone who was practically a stranger. But Derek's words, though straightforward, rang true. "I know I should be focused on getting better," Lily said, her voice faint, "but I feel like I'm stuck. Every day feels the same, and I'm just tired." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Tired of what?" "Everything," Lily answered quickly. "The lies, the betrayal. The way I used to think things were okay when they weren't. And the worst part is, I let myself believe that I could fix it. That I could make it better." Her voice cracked slightly. "And now, I don't even know who I am anymore." Derek nodded understandingly. "You're not the only one who's felt that way. But here's something I want you to think about. Healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about finding what remains. What's left after everything's fallen apart. Sometimes, we don't know who we are until we have to pick up the pieces and put ourselves back together." Lily let his words sink in. She wasn't sure what it meant yet, but for the first time in a while, a spark of clarity pierced through the fog in her mind. The day before the crash, after Lily had sent Tom that final message, she had driven aimlessly for hours. The late-night sky had been empty, stretching on forever, just like her thoughts. She had tried calling her sister, Kelly, hoping for some guidance, but the call went straight to voicemail. Her phone buzzed in the passenger seat, and Lily glanced at it. The name that flashed on the screen nearly made her swerve. It was Catherine. Lily's heart stuttered for a moment, the coldness of betrayal creeping up her spine. With a deep breath, she answered the call, knowing full well what she might hear. "Lily, it's Catherine," the voice on the other end said, hesitant but steady. "I don't want you to think I'm trying to make things worse. I'm not trying to hurt you. But I think you need to know something." Lily could barely hear her through the pounding of her own heartbeat. "What do you want?" "I never wanted any of this," Catherine continued. "I know this is hard to hear, but Tom, he's been pulling away for a long time. I didn't start this, but I also didn't walk away when it happened. I should have, but I didn't." Lily gripped the steering wheel, tears blurring her vision. She wasn't sure whether she wanted to hang up or hear more. "Tom told me about the problems between you two," Catherine said, her voice softening, "and that's when I made the mistake. I should have respected your marriage, but I didn't. I'm sorry. I truly am." Lily's chest tightened, anger boiling up inside her. "Do you expect me to forgive you?" she asked, her voice laced with bitterness. "After everything?" "I don't expect anything from you," Catherine answered. "I just want you to know that it wasn't just you he was pulling away from. It was everyone. I didn't steal him. He made choices, and now he's facing those choices. And so am I." The call ended there. Catherine's apology felt empty, hollow, just like everything Tom had said. But Lily didn't hang up the phone right away. She stayed there in the silence, her hands shaking as she tried to process everything. She wasn't sure if she felt more betrayed by Catherine or by Tom. Both had played a part, but the reality was that it was Tom who had broken their vows. Tom who had shattered their life together. The coldness of the night wrapped around her as she thought about her family, her children, Ethan and Emily, who would soon be asking questions she couldn't answer. She had to find a way forward. She had to decide whether she would stay stuck in this cycle of pain or whether she would break free from it. Lily had come a long way since that night, though she didn't realize it at the time. It felt like a lifetime ago. But Derek's words from earlier echoed in her mind as she sat there, silently. What remained? What was left of her after everything had crumbled? She could feel her pulse quickening as the truth settled in. She didn't want to be stuck in the past anymore. She didn't want to spend her life constantly chasing answers that might never come. She couldn't keep letting Tom's betrayal define who she was. The path forward would be hard. She knew that. But Lily had survived the crash. She had survived everything that came before it. And she could survive this too. Thank you, Derek, she said softly, breaking the silence, for reminding me that I have a choice. Derek smiled and gave her a knowing nod. It's all yours, Lily. Whatever you decide, just remember, you've already made it this far. You've already proven you can stand strong. Lily nodded, a flicker of resolve returning to her. The road ahead would be long and there would be more difficult decisions to come. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of power again, a sense of control. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step toward healing. The days following her conversation with Derek felt oddly still, like the calm before a storm. Lily had been trying to keep herself busy, focusing on small goals, completing her physical therapy exercises, organizing her hospital room, checking in with Olivia, and even making a few calls to the people she had lost touch with over the years. But there was still something nagging at her, something she couldn't ignore. Every time her phone buzzed, a small shudder ran through her. Was it him? Was it Tom again? She couldn't bring herself to check. For the first time since the accident, she wasn't sure if she wanted to hear from him. Part of her still longed for answers, but another part of her knew that no answer could undo the hurt he had caused. Tom had sent her several messages after the one she had responded to, each one more pleading than the last. But Lily refused to read them. It was as if the more he tried to explain, the more she felt like she was suffocating. She had given him so many chances over the years, and now she was done. Olivia had noticed the change in Lily, though. The once persistent fog of grief had cleared a little, but it was still there, hanging in the air like a persistent mist that wouldn't quite lift. "How are you really doing?" Olivia asked one afternoon, sitting down beside Lily on the edge of her bed. Her eyes were gentle, but she wasn't fooled by the surface-level calm. Lily paused, her fingers tracing the edge of the hospital blanket. "I'm figuring it out," she replied, her voice uncertain. "I don't know what the right thing is to do anymore, Liv. Sometimes it feels like everything I thought I knew is just gone." Olivia nodded, understanding the weight of Lily's words. "You're allowed to feel that way. It's okay not to have all the answers right now. But I think you're doing something most people never get a chance to do." Lily raised an eyebrow, her exhaustion clear. "What's that?" "You're choosing to face the truth. Not just about Tom, but about everything. About yourself. A lot of people never do that. They keep running from the hard stuff, and that's how they stay stuck." Lily let out a long sigh, her gaze drifting to the window, where the sun was beginning to set. "It doesn't feel like I'm moving forward. It feels like I'm just waiting for something to change. For someone else to fix it for me. And then I remember that it's not just Tom that broke me. It's me too. You didn't break yourself, Lily. This wasn't your fault." Olivia's voice softened with conviction. "But I let it happen," Lily murmured. "I let it go on for so long, knowing things weren't right. And I still chose to stay. Maybe I thought if I kept pretending, it would get better. Maybe I didn't want to face the truth." Olivia placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "That's the hardest part. Acknowledging that you couldn't change it, even though you tried. But you're not responsible for someone else's choices. You never were." Lily nodded, though the words didn't quite settle in her chest yet. She was still haunted by the idea that there had been something she could have done to stop it, to prevent everything from falling apart. The first time Lily had sensed something was off had been during their anniversary dinner. Tom had been distracted, checking his phone more than usual. She'd caught him several times looking down, his expression unreadable when he thought she wasn't paying attention. She had dismissed it, thinking it was just stress from work. But then, just after dessert, she saw a text message flash across his screen. It wasn't from anyone she recognized, and when Tom glanced at it, his face immediately hardened. Lily had smiled, trying to keep the mood light. "Everything okay?" Tom nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just work stuff. Don't worry about it." But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The next few days were a blur of small moments, Tom leaving earlier than usual for work, coming home later, his excuses growing thinner with each passing day. She'd been afraid to ask, afraid of what she might find. But when she finally did confront him, she had already known the answer. "You've been distant," she had said one night, her voice trembling with the weight of the truth she had already suspected. "Are you seeing someone else?" Tom's face had gone pale, and he had stared at her in shock. For a moment, Lily had felt like she was in a nightmare, watching him struggle for words that didn't come. And when he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost resigned. I don't know how to say this, Lily. I didn't want to hurt you. But yes, there's someone else. And I've been trying to figure out how to tell you, how to end things. But I didn't know how." The words had cut deeper than any physical injury ever could. They were a betrayal she hadn't been prepared for. The man she had trusted with her life had been lying to her for months, maybe even years. And now there was nothing left to say. Lily woke from her thoughts to the sound of her phone buzzing again. This time, her heart skipped a beat, and she didn't even need to look at the screen to know it was Tom. He had been texting her nonstop for days, but Lily had been resolute. She wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of another conversation, another empty apology. But when she opened the message, she froze. "Tom. Lily, I know you've been avoiding me. But please, just listen. I never wanted it to be like this. I was wrong, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. You're the love of my life. Please, come back." The words were desperate, the tone pleading. It was everything she had wanted to hear a year ago, everything that would have made her believe in him again. But now, after everything that had happened, those words felt hollow. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the trust he had broken, the years of pretending things were okay when they weren't. How many more lies could I forgive? She stared at the screen, trying to find some part of her that still cared, still wanted him. But it wasn't there anymore. She wasn't the same woman who had begged for him to come back. She didn't owe him any more chances. Lily took a deep breath, her fingers shaking as she typed her response. "I'm not the same person I was when I married you, Tom. I've changed, and I'm not going to keep waiting for you to change. I need to heal, and I can't do that with you in my life anymore." With one last look at the message, she hit send. And just like that, she let go. Lily had known for days that this moment was coming. She had steeled herself, convinced herself that it would be the right thing to do. Letting go of Tom had been a decision months in the making, but actually following through on it felt like stepping into a void. She had crossed a line she couldn't uncross, and there was no going back. The hospital room was quiet as she sat there, staring at her phone, willing herself not to overthink her decision. The finality of her message echoed in her mind. I can't do this anymore. It wasn't just about ending her marriage. It was about severing ties with the past, about cutting away the parts of herself that had clung to a dream of reconciliation, even when everything had been screaming at her to walk away. The days that followed were some of the hardest she had ever experienced. The hospital room felt like a prison. Every time the door opened, Lily tensed. Every time the phone buzzed, her heart raced. But no one came. No one from Tom's side, no apologies, no explanations. It was as if, once the words were out there, he had disappeared. The silence was deafening. She felt like an anchor, stuck in the mud of her own emotions, unable to fully rise to the surface. She had made the right choice, she was sure of it, but there was still a part of her that couldn't help but question the decision. The idea of moving on, of accepting her reality without Tom in it, was terrifying. Then, one evening as Lily lay in bed, her thoughts consumed by the emptiness that seemed to have taken over her life, Olivia came rushing into her room, breathless. "You won't believe this," Olivia said, her eyes wide with urgency. "You need to see something." Lily's stomach twisted with unease. "What is it?" Olivia didn't answer at first. Instead, she handed Lily her phone, and there, in full display, was a news headline. "Tom Harper, CEO of Harper Enterprises, under investigation for corporate fraud." Lily felt her pulse spike as she read the article. The details were sparse, but there was enough to draw a line between Tom's company and some shady financial dealings. The investigation was just beginning, but the allegations were serious: embezzlement, insider trading, and misrepresentation of company finances. Lily's mind raced, but something deeper inside her flickered. She had been living in the shadow of Tom's lies for so long that it was almost impossible to accept that this was happening. Was this why he had been so secretive lately? Was this the real reason for the sudden late nights, the business trips, the cold distance between them? "Is this real?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. Olivia nodded, her expression serious. "It's all over the news, and people are talking about it. His company is in real trouble. I don't know if you've seen the company's stocks, but they're plummeting." "It's huge, Lily. No one saw it coming." Lily sat back, feeling the weight of the world pressing against her chest. It wasn't just that Tom had lied to her about Catherine, it was that he had been lying to her about everything. The life they had built, the promises he had made, were all part of a larger deception. As the shock began to settle in, another thought crossed Lily's mind: how much of his betrayal had been for his own gain? How many of those business trips, those late nights, were connected to this? Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The strange tension between them, the growing distance, the vague excuses, it had all been part of a much larger picture. Tom hadn't just been unfaithful emotionally. He had been hiding his entire life from her. He had been manipulating her, using his charm to keep her blind to the truth while he built his empire on lies. Lily felt a mixture of disgust and clarity. He had betrayed her in more ways than she could have ever imagined. The affair with Catherine was just the tip of the iceberg. Lily remembered the first time she had questioned Tom's integrity, before the affair, before the betrayal. It had been the night of their company's annual gala, an event where Tom had been awarded the prestigious Businessman of the Year title. She had gone with him, of course, standing proudly by his side. The evening had been perfect, beautiful venue, an extravagant dinner, and a room full of people complimenting Tom for his success. But it wasn't the accolades that caught Lily's attention that night. It was the subtle hints, the things she hadn't seen before, that fell off. During the speeches, as Tom took the stage, Lily noticed a few familiar faces in the crowd, the same men who had been around him more than usual lately. The same men who had been involved in some of the company's higher-level meetings. And the way they looked at each other, furtive glances, half smiles, there was something too familiar about it all. Afterward, when they were sitting at their table, one of Tom's colleagues had come over to congratulate him. Tom had been unusually tense, his smile strained. The man's handshake had been too firm, the praise too scripted. Something felt rehearsed. That night, as they left the gala and headed home, Lily had pressed Tom about his strange behavior. "Why did you act so weird with Greg tonight?" she had asked, her voice soft but insistent. Tom had smiled, a little too brightly. "It's just business, babe. You know how it is." But Lily hadn't been convinced. It wasn't just business. It was something more. Now, standing at the crossroads of her marriage and her future, Lily felt a sharp pang in her chest. For the first time, she understood exactly how much of her life had been manipulated. Tom had built his entire world on deceit, and she had been a part of it, just a piece in his puzzle. And worse, she had chosen to stay in the dark, pretending it didn't matter. But it did matter. And now Lily knew that she couldn't walk away from this truth. She had to find out everything. The affair was one thing, but the fraud, the lies about his business, the way he had built everything on broken promises, that was something Lily couldn't ignore. She had to uncover the full truth, not just for herself, but for the future. If she was ever going to rebuild her life, she needed to understand exactly what had happened. And there was one person who could help her get to the heart of the deception. Lily dialed Olivia's number, her fingers trembling with a new sense of determination. "Liv, I need you to help me dig into Tom's business dealings. I need to know everything. All of it." Olivia's voice was steady, without hesitation. "You got it. Whatever you need." As the conversation ended, Lily felt a sense of purpose ignite inside her. She wasn't going to be a victim anymore. She wasn't going to wait around for Tom to fix the mess he had created. She was going to take control. And this time, she wasn't just going to uncover the lies. She was going to expose them to the world. The next few days were a whirlwind. Lily could feel the storm brewing inside her, but this time, it wasn't from the uncertainty of her emotions. It was the storm of action, of making choices that would change everything. No more wondering if Tom would show up to apologize. No more hoping he'd suddenly recognize the destruction he'd caused. No. Lily had taken the reins, and the truth was her weapon. With Olivia's help, Lily began to unravel the threads of Tom's empire. It wasn't easy. The higher Tom's status, the deeper the layers of deception, and the more people were involved. But Olivia was a force to be reckoned with, and between her skills in research and Lily's determination, they began to uncover shocking details. There were financial discrepancies going back months, questionable transfers between accounts, and multiple reports suggesting the company's profits had been inflated. It seemed that Tom had been living a double life. The successful businessman on the outside, and a man willing to risk everything, including his marriage, for the sake of greed and deceit. As they dug deeper, Lily came across a document that stopped her cold. A confidential audit from the company's accounting firm. The figures were damning, clear evidence of fraud on a massive scale. But it was one specific name that caught her eye, Catherine Donovan. She felt a wave of nausea rise in her chest as her mind processed what she was seeing. Catherine had been more than just Tom's lover. She had been involved in the financial side of Tom's business dealings. She was more than just a bystander in the affair. She had been helping Tom cover his tracks. Lily sat back, her hand trembling as she reread the document. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about a scheme that spanned years. She was the last person to know everything. The woman who had lived in the dark, the woman who had been manipulated, was now the woman holding the key to destroying everything Tom had built. "Olivia, you need to look at this," Lily said, her voice tight with disbelief. "Catherine, she's been helping him. She's not just his lover. She's been part of this whole mess from the beginning." Olivia's eyes widened as she scanned the document. "This is huge, Lily. This isn't just personal. This is criminal." Lily leaned back in her chair, trying to steady her breath. It was all starting to make sense now. Tom's erratic behavior, his late nights, his secretive trips, it wasn't just an affair. It was a cover-up. He had been balancing his personal life and his corporate fraud at the same time, and he had pulled Catherine into it. "I need to confront him," Lily said quietly, almost to herself. Olivia shook her head, her voice stern. "Lily, don't do it alone. This is bigger than you think. You're not just dealing with a cheating husband anymore. This is corporate fraud. You don't know what Tom will do if he feels cornered." But Lily was already lost in her thoughts, her mind racing. There was no turning back. Tom had taken everything from her, and now, with the full scope of his betrayal in front of her, she felt a burning need for justice. She wasn't going to let him walk away from this. It had been a week after Tom's confession about his affair. Lily had been in a daze, trying to process the weight of his words, when she saw something on his desk that sent a chill down her spine. It was a file labeled confidential, but it wasn't like the other corporate files. It was thicker, bound in red leather, and it was sealed with a lock that could only be opened by a special key. Tom had always been secretive about his work, but this was different. Lily had opened the file when he wasn't home one afternoon, driven by the need to understand the man she had been married to for over a decade. As she flipped through the pages, her heart sank. It was a set of financial documents, contracts, and emails that detailed shady deals, ones that Tom had kept hidden from her. One name kept appearing: Catherine Donovan. Tom had brushed off his relationship with her as a mistake. But there, on paper, it was clear that Catherine wasn't just an affair partner. She was involved in Tom's business dealings, illegal ones. And Lily was just starting to understand the full extent of what that meant. Tom had been hiding this from her, too. Everything in Lily's world shattered in that moment. She had spent months in the dark, believing the best of Tom, only to realize that he had been hiding more than just his heart. That evening, Lily walked into her apartment, the walls of her sanctuary suddenly feeling too small, too confining. She had spent hours on the phone with Olivia, trying to sort through the next steps, but deep down, she knew she had to do this herself. She had to confront Tom directly. She wasn't going to wait for him to apologize anymore. She wasn't going to let him manipulate her one more time. Her phone buzzed again. Tom. She stared at the name on the screen for a long moment, contemplating whether she should respond. Part of her wanted to yell at him, to accuse him of everything she now knew. But she had made her decision. She wasn't going to engage in his lies anymore. Instead, Lily hit block. She pulled out the confidential file once more and opened it. There was no doubt anymore. She had seen the evidence. Tom's empire was built on lies, and Catherine was his co-conspirator. This was bigger than just her marriage. This was about corruption, greed, and betrayal on a scale Lily couldn't have imagined. Lily closed the file, her resolve hardening. I won't be part of this anymore. She picked up the phone again, dialing the one number she hadn't yet called. Hello. The voice on the other end was calm, composed, a stark contrast to the storm that was swirling in Lily's chest. It's time, Lily said, her voice firm. We need to go public. He can't get away with this. There was a pause on the other end before Olivia's voice answered, determined. Are you sure, Lily? Once we do this, there's no turning back. Lily's fingers clenched around the phone. I'm sure. It's time to take him down. With everything in place, Lily and Olivia reached out to the authorities and a few trusted journalists. They were ready. The moment had come. It wasn't just about exposing Tom's affair anymore. This was about bringing him to justice for the fraud he had orchestrated, for the lies he had told, not only to her but to everyone around him. As they prepared to make their move, Lily felt a rush of adrenaline, her pulse racing. She had fought through the darkest days of her life, and now she was ready to bring the truth into the light. Tom would never see it coming. And she wouldn't stop until the truth was exposed and justice was served. The days leading up to the public release of Tom's fraudulent dealings were a blur of tension and anticipation. Lily barely slept, and when she did, her dreams were haunted by Tom's face, the pleading, the apologies, the lies. Each time she closed her eyes, she felt his presence like a shadow hovering over her, threatening to pull her back into the toxic mess she had been fighting to escape. But there was no turning back now. The decision was made, the evidence was in place, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The clock was ticking down, and the weight of what was about to unfold rested heavily on her shoulders. She couldn't help but feel both a sense of liberation and dread. The truth had its own power, and she was about to unleash it. Lily had spent hours with Olivia, organizing every piece of information they had gathered, emails, documents, audio recordings of Tom's shady conversations, and, most damning of all, Catherine Donovan's involvement. They had contacted a trusted journalist who was known for exposing corporate corruption, and the plan was set. The story would break the next morning. But as Lily sat in her apartment, staring at the pile of evidence before her, her thoughts began to spiral. What would happen when the truth came out? What would Tom do? Would he try to bury the story? Would he go down fighting? Would he ever admit that he had destroyed everything he had built, everything they had shared, with his lies? The doorbell rang, pulling her from her thoughts. Lily stood and opened the door to find Olivia standing on the other side, her expression grim. "We're ready," Olivia said, holding up a folder full of documents. The weight of the moment settled in both of them. They were on the brink of something huge, and it was impossible to predict the fallout. Lily took the folder, her fingers brushing against Olivia's in a brief, but meaningful moment of solidarity. "Let's do this," Lily said, her voice steady, even if her heart was beating wildly in her chest. The following morning, as the sun began to rise over the city, Lily sat at her kitchen table with Olivia. The quiet hum of their phones filled the air as the article, with the headline, "Tom Harper under investigation for corporate fraud and embezzlement. The web of lies exposed," went live. The details were thorough, painting a picture of a businessman who had manipulated not only his company, but also those closest to him. The story quickly spread. Lily could hear her phone vibrating constantly on the table, but she didn't pick it up. She didn't need to. She already knew what it would say. The world was waking up to the truth, and nothing would ever be the same again. As the hours passed, the calls began. Some from friends, some from strangers, all asking about the story. But Lily didn't need to explain. She had nothing left to hide. And then, at exactly 11:17 a.m., her phone rang. It was Tom. Her heart lurched as she glanced at the screen, but she didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Lily hesitated, then pressed play. "Lily," his voice cracked, the desperation in it unmistakable. I can't believe you did this. You have no idea what you've done. I never wanted you to find out this way. I didn't want to hurt you. You have to understand, everything I did for us. For our future. Please call me back. We can fix this. We can figure it out." Lily listened, the tears threatening to spill over, but she held them in. She had been the one who had spent years holding her breath, waiting for things to get better, for Tom to change. But there was no more waiting. There was no fixing it. It had all been a lie, and now it was time for him to face the consequences. With a shaky exhale, Lily deleted the voicemail and turned off her phone. She didn't need his explanations anymore. Hours later, Tom showed up at her door, unannounced. He looked different, disheveled, his face pale, eyes wide with fear. The man who had once stood so confidently, so arrogantly, was now a shell of the person he had been. Lily could see the panic in his eyes as he stood on the threshold, his hand clenched around the doorframe like he was afraid to let go. "Lily, please," his voice was hoarse, his breath shallow. "You don't understand. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was a mistake I'm paying for. Please, don't do this. Don't let them ruin me." Lily stood motionless, her arms crossed, watching him, feeling the weight of everything he had done settle in her bones. She had loved him once, had trusted him with everything she was. But now, there was nothing left to give. The man standing before her was a stranger, a man she no longer recognized. "You don't get it, do you, Tom?" Lily's voice was calm, steady, as if the years of pain had been siphoned out of her, leaving only the pure clarity of truth. "This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't just you messing up. You built your entire life on lies, and you dragged me into it. You used me, Tom. You used everyone. And you never once thought about the people who trusted you." Tom's face contorted in disbelief, but Lily didn't care anymore. She had faced the truth, and now it was his turn. You lied about Catherine. You lied about everything. And now the whole world knows. She took a step forward, her voice growing stronger with each word. I'm done being part of your lies, Tom. I'm done. His face crumbled, and for a moment, it seemed like he might break down. But then, just as quickly, something cold flickered in his eyes. He stepped back, his lips tightening. You think this will fix things? He spat, his voice rising. You think ruining me will make you feel better? You think I care about what the world thinks? You have no idea what's really going on. This isn't over. You'll regret this. Lily stood her ground, her heart pounding, but she didn't flinch. It's already over, Tom. And I'm never going back. With that, she closed the door between them, a final barrier to the life they once shared. The fallout from the story was nothing short of explosive. Tom's company was placed under investigation, and the media swarmed around every corner of his life. The headlines didn't stop, and as the truth spread, so did the whispers about his affair, about his financial crimes, and about the woman who had been bold enough to stand up to him. Lily knew that things would never go back to the way they were. She had made sure of that. But as she sat on her balcony that evening, the sun setting behind her, she felt a strange sense of peace. The storm had passed. The truth had been exposed. And for the first time in a long while, Lily felt free. She was no longer defined by the man who had broken her. She was defined by her own strength, by her decision to choose herself. The world would keep spinning, and she would keep moving forward. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?